to be spreading a lot of knowledge and wisdom and understanding. And this is 92.7 in Living Stereo. I have two very, very important guests in the house. One of them I haven't seen in so many hundreds of years. I tried to link up with him, and then we linked up just once briefly. My brother, my sister, and that was it. I am excited to have Priest Kailash in the house. Priest Kailash Loins is right here in the house. Priest Kailash, how are you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. Give thanks for having us again.
Oh my God, have mercy. I am so excited to see you one more time, man.
You also, Honorable. You look as energetic as usual.
And you're coming all the way from St. Lucia, is that correct?
Yes, I'm coming in from St. Lucia, which is basically a country in the Caribbean.
What?
Yeah.
What? Priest Kailash Loins is my guest on this show. We simply call him Priest Kailash. My brother, my sister. Next is another guest. Oh my God. And I'm more than just excited to introduce this guest. Rasta Dr. Wayne Rose is an African diaspora history student, teacher, a lecturer, and at the same time, he is a melting point of Afro-Caribbean spirituality. Yes, melting pot. Dr. Wayne Rose, you're welcome into the studio.
Rastafari, honor and blessings, Black Rasta. Give thanks to you and your listening audience for having us and for hosting this conversation. Blessed love.
Blessed. Thank you so much. I am really, really happy to have you. Now I'm going to go straight up and ask you, Dr. Wayne Rose, what does it mean to say Caribbean spirituality? What is that?
So the important thing in that context is the fact that many of our NI people who have been taken away from our continent had to engage new systems of knowledge and new systems of existence, including in those systems is spirituality. And one of those important components of spirituality is Rastafari, a framing of our reality pegged to Ethiopia and the greatness of Ethiopia, and more importantly, pegged to Emperor Haile Selassie I, and a movement that emerged from the Caribbean that speaks to the connectedness between our people and our continent, and that great rift valley through which the mitochondrial DNA of all humanity comes from. So even in the context of Rastafari, it is Ethiopic, it is a framing of our spirituality, it is African, and there are other components too, which are of an African-centered reality. So we look at those things and we share it with our people. The fact that these are the mechanisms through which I have used to survive, to overcome, and to excel, even as we're doing today. Interesting.
Well, I will have to remind you that we are also live on Facebook, as you can see on the screens, right on your left. We are live on social media across the world. Dr. Wayne Rose, thank you so much for that. How different is Afro-Caribbean spirituality from African spirituality?
Well, the thing is, there are retentions that have been within our people as we moved across the continent, as we moved from the continent, whether it was forcefully or voluntarily. But as we stay in these new spaces, especially in the Caribbean, where our people have been socialized differently, we have sought to re-engage and to build on those things that are part of our DNA, part of our natural evolution, if you will. In the context of Africa and African spirituality, that which was not imposed upon Africa, but came through the very DNA of the people, the very loins of the people. The construction of spirituality is part of that reality. And so Africa has that rootedness in its origin. Of course, we know through the colonial process that there have been some impositions in the African context. But outside of that, Africa has had its natural form of spirituality, which is still expressed among all peoples of Africa, whether they've synchronized with other forms of spirituality, just as part of their natural evolution.
Interesting. I mean, Africa has so many different types of spiritualities, if I may say. So many different people have a different way of reaching out to God, as to communicating within themselves to probably a higher authority and all that. I would like to ask you, Dr. Wayne Rose, when we say Afro-Caribbean spirituality, you mentioned Haile Selassie. How important is Haile Selassie in African spirituality?
So Haile Selassie I, as Emperor of Ethiopia, has a political role in terms of the evolution of the Ethiopian empire itself. And he symbolizes, in many ways, the form of personality that man can evolve into becoming the highest among yourself.
Right.
He symbolizes the divine in the flesh. A man who has moved from various stages, from youth through adulthood.
Right.
Where he has taken on the responsibilities that all of I and I aspire for now, where we govern ourselves, where we're managing ourselves, and we manage systems. In the context of spirituality, all of that is synced. Because as you manage yourself, you need to be restful. You need to rejuvenate. You need to connect to the higher forces. And all of that is embedded in you. And he represents that embedded nature of man rising, of man connecting, of man being whole. So I frame my response this way to say this is what makes him very important. Because he's connected in all forms of ways, in the material, the physical, and the spiritual ways of the whole man. And so as man aspires to become more than he has been socialized as, you look at the example of Haile Selassie and says, that is what I'd love to become. Someone who progresses in a balanced way, spiritually, materially, etc. And therefore, we say spiritual consciousness is a transfer from the persona of Haile Selassie, the first, into our own lives.
I would like to ask this last one before I move on to Priest Kailash, who is a physician, in fact, a herbal physician and an entrepreneur. Dr. Wayne Rose, what would you say to a man who tells you that Haile Selassie has never been relevant in African spirituality until Afro-Caribbean spirituality came in?
I would say that that man is underread and misinformed, and not as a rebuke, but to share, because all of us are on a journey, and many times we believe that the stage of our journey is the final destination. Fortunately for all of us is that we have had teachers, we have had examples, and we have documentation on works already performed, lives already lived, realities that have already been. And so we can tap into those various series of information and to harness them for our own benefit. So while the African Caribbean dimension is an important reminder because of how we have been socialized, our people have been socialized, it is not a standalone, and it was never intended as a standalone. It was to be used and is being used as a reminder, pointing us again to our continent and to the leadership of our continent, which has represented the full nature of what our aspirations have been. So Haile Selassie has been, is, and will remain relevant as we move forward as an example, as a beam, a beacon of light. And when we start adapting ourselves, embracing that beacon, the direction the beacon points us to, we will find that in our mirror, we too represent the highest ideal as long as we aspire and ascribe to it.
Can you give me a couple of examples of the relevance of Haile Selassie before the onset of Rasta in African spirituality?
So in the context of African spirituality, and let us frame one in the religious setting, because spirituality and religions are really commingled. Sometimes they can be easily separated. So being someone who came through the Ethiopian Orthodox faith, and representing the highest ideals of the Ethiopian Orthodox faith, the knowledge systems of the Ethiopian Orthodox faith, recognizing that it's not an imposition in terms of something coming into Ethiopia as Christianity, but it is part of the existence of Ethiopia. The origins of religion itself comes through the birthing process that Ethiopia gave it. In fact, the very framework of our humanity, the first humanoid or human being, as the paleontologists have described, the skull of Lucy, is complete. It's not a morphing reality. So remember, spirituality and religions are gifts of Africa to the rest of the world. So when you frame Ethiopia as the baseline, the foundation, ground zero of our human existence, and you look at the emperor of Ethiopia and what he represents in terms of leadership across Ethiopia, embracing all forms of religion, including Islam, the Falashas, the Ethiopian Jews, including all components of indigenous worship patterns, then you see that he has been and remains relevant to the existence of people who expresses their divinity in different formats. So he's been there before man start hailing him as Rastafari, which is leader to be respected. If we look in terms of that framing itself, we recognize that the man has shown us the pattern for humanity to lift itself and continue its own evolution.
Dr. Wayne Rose, we'll get back to you shortly. But I want to turn my attention right now to Priest Kailash. Priest Kailash, how are you doing one more time?
I'm blessed, man. Give thanks for that.
Oh my God, I love the voice. Deep, nice, beautiful voice.
Yeah, man.
You know, well, I mean, you are a herbal physician. What is that?
Well, basically, it is a term that we have trademarked. When after going into medical school and going through the normal medical study, we saw that there wasn't really a system of medicine that was basically inclined towards the upliftment of people like that look like myself. In truth and in fact, the great majority of the medications that you saw, when we studied them in pharmacology, it was that, okay, well, this is not effective for people of Afro-Caribbean heritage or people that are of African descent. It is more effective in this and that set of people. So it led me to, after going through medical school, to say what was taught to me by my grandmother and what is being done in Ghana. That's why I came in 2008, you know, and I spent 3 months here because I wanted to really get to the root of what are our healing modalities of medicine. What is it that we could actually replicate and create that has been logically created just for our people and not being apologetic about that? Because what you find out is that, I mean, the black woman is number one in the world that with fibroids, polycystic ovarian syndrome. 2 out of 3 of them get breast cancer. 2 out of every 3 of them that get breast cancer die from breast cancer. The black man, 2 out of every 3 black men get prostate cancer. 2 out of every 3 of them that get prostate cancer die from prostate cancer. So when you look at non-communicable chronic illnesses like diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular diseases, our people are the people that suffer and die from it the most. So it is critical that within my own studies, as Marcus Garvey say, that in my studies, when I go into university and study different cultures and study what my ancestors have actually taught me, that we now have to take that fundamental responsibility to create a system that is actually created just for us as a people. So a herbal physician, in short, is a man that or woman that actually utilizes contemporary knowledge, science, link it back to the root of it, because I mean, even the ancient manuscripts of surgery comes from Africa. You know, so even before you had deep heart surgery and open up the sternum and go into the cavities of the thorax, we did that already in Africa. So it's nothing really new. So when we take possession of that, then you, as a man who deals with spiritual healing or herbal healing or traditional healing, it's not like as if you are putting aside the science of nanotechnology or you're putting aside the science of AI that they bring into us right now. We are actually putting it together to create a system that is result-oriented to elevate our people to that ultimate, what the brother said, optimum wellness. as we know, wellness is not just optimum. It is an always evolving process of being the best version of yourself that you could actually be.
Interesting. Does that tell me that you probably do not believe in the paracetamols, the chloroquines, and all the injections we get from the doctor?
Well, it's not that we just don't believe in it. I feel very privileged to have studied the whole craft of allopathic medicine and pharmacology. It is through that I was able to see, well, the paracetamol as a painkiller. There's a plant called paracetamol, you know, and your ibuprofen, your non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. There's a plant that contains salicylic acid, right, that I can use as an anti-inflammatory, or curcumine in turmeric that I can use as an anti-inflammatory. So I never look at the knowledge that I gain from conventional university as something that I'm against. I'm saying, but look, this just actually justified or accredited what my grandmother and my great-grandmother have been doing all the years. So I welcome that knowledge, you know, and I welcome our youth and our younger people to also embrace that knowledge. So when you become conscious, when you become, what they say, Afrocentric, it's not that you discard scientific knowledge. As Marcus Garvey say, religion and science is the only way we could withstand the evil design of modern materialism, right? So it is critical that when we gain that knowledge, and as His Imperial Majesty said, that education without culture is nothing. So where we actually come from culturally, we could create that cesspool of knowledge, that research and development to create a drug that we might not call paracetamol, we might call parahilitol, or some type of drug that actually takes into consideration where we come from spiritually. So my journey has actually led me to that path to say, well, look, I get that knowledge. You know, I got this knowledge, I'm getting that knowledge, and I want more of this knowledge, you know, because even when you die, you learn, because death is a new experience. So we don't even say, well, learning ends at the grave. It actually begins at the grave to learn what death really is. Yes.
Interesting.
This is 3FM.
His name is Priest Kailash. He's coming all the way from St. Lucia, and he's a herbal physician and an entrepreneur. Now, if you were involved in an accident, it doesn't mean I wish an accident for you, and you lost so much blood. Would you take a blood transfusion?
Well, I mean, just look at, I will not be in that kind of a predicament, you know. As you know, it's word, song, power. Specifically, what you're looking at, you look at the Jehovah's Witness people.
Right.
They don't take blood transfusion.
They don't.
What they do, they have created a system whereby the plasma could be removed, and if you have to get rehydrated, you get rehydrated. So even when you call intravenous or just your drips, just to raise up your heart rate or just to maintain your blood pressure levels, you know, the seawater has a same or very similar chemical integrity as the blood of a man. You know, even the blood of the plant, which is chlorophyll, is just difference is only iron and magnesium. You know, so understanding the whole science of things, and we know, well, look, you don't have to do that, you know, because you fully understand how it implicates different aspects of your physical structure, like your kidney function and all these different aspects. So I won't tell a man refuse a blood transfusion. I would tell them, let us create a system, because we do expect accidents would happen. And we do know that we have to utilize different means to put bones together, you know, and to put tissues and to put muscles and to put back. Anyway, let me just cut that short by saying that I'm here with Brother Owusu, Jeremiah Owusu Koramoah, who is basically a Ghanaian who was nominated or voted best dressed NFL player. And I'm part of his delegation, basically coming here to actually see how we could impact that wholesome knowledge onto the people of Africa.
For real.
And he being a younger man and I being, I would say, a mentor to him, I'm here in that capacity. And yet still in the capacity of, as you know, well, NFL, you know, you get injuries and all these different things happen. And certain of the modalities that he's had to embrace. I see this man, you know, contact me on Instagram. He's a youth. He's in the NFL. And what actually attracted me to him or took him seriously was because of how he was just attached to his roots.
Exactly.
You know, so I see, well, he's always in Ghana. He has this camp. So I took him seriously. And he came to St. Lucia to our rejuvenation center, you know, got some healing, organized himself. So I'm saying that it does not mean that because someone tells you that you need surgery, He'll tell you what you need because that's what he knows, right? But the man that knows how to manipulate things without opening you up. That's his realms of knowledge. That is why in the day-to-day you have a concept of medicine that is called integrative medicine. That surpasses what you call alternative medicine or complementary medicine. It's integrative because they are integrating the traditional knowledge, right? They have a field of medicine that they now call anthroposophic medicine, where they tell you, well, good music is good for you. So if you're taking chemotherapy and radiotherapy and you could listen to some good music, it would help you heal. Or if it is that they focus on your spiritual background, it would help you heal.
Right.
And this is the same thing that the Rastafari have been saying. When the
This
music
is
hit you,
3FM.
you feel no pain. Right, and Peter Tosh has been saying legalize it and all these different aspects.
Right.
So you see that the Rasta man 50 years ago, was on track, and what the Rasta man have been teaching the world for the past 5 decades, right now is what's been embraced by the world. And we now as Rastafari, as in this conference where they say political what, my lord? Political consciousness, understanding that our political consciousness is not about just getting an X or putting your thumb, but understanding your intricate value that you add into the system, that it not become an ingredient, it ends. It comes if in unity it rises, that your input into the system will be recognized and you'll be given the position that you have earned into the upliftment of our people. So when we look at countries like St. Lucia, yes, I'm a herbal physician. So people say, well, priest boy, I have diabetes or I have prostate cancer, what can I do? But also, what about violence within our communities? So we play an active role in interrupting and stopping and redirecting the energies of the youth. So when you reach here in Ghana, you don't have the gun violence, but in St. Lucia, you have violent. It's like violent. It's even on travel advisory. And then we say, okay, well, look, the reason for this is because the developmental module does not embrace the energies of our young people. My mentor was a teacher, and God bless his soul, is if the ancestors. And people would always tell him, but K, they call me K. K is a very troublesome man. That's when I was about 10, 11. He said, K is not troublesome. He's a genius. He's before his time. St. Lucia is too small for him. So the same youth that people might be calling violent and be putting on the side, because they are not included in the developmental apparatus of the country, then they resort to different activities that leads to the bringing down of our social and our moral fabric. So now, even in Ghana, with up to 65-70% people under the age of 45, we have that opportunity whereby we could prevent this disease of crime and violence and gun violence by finding out a way where we could incorporate our youths in the upliftment and the development of our country.
Interesting. I see your teeth are very white, whiter than
just
my
like
own
yours.
teeth. Tell me, what do you use for your teeth? Do you smoke?
I don't smoke. I steam. The way that I utilize ganja or cannabis is principally through a steaming process. So it's not like I put it through the process of complete combustion where you burn it and then you have all that smoke. Critically, if a man wraps cannabis, marijuana in a paper, if you smoke 3 papers a day, 3 spliffs a day, after 100 days you would have smoked 300 spliffs. That means that you'd have taken 300 cigarette papers, wrapped it and smoked it and inhaled it. So we would tell a man then, the ancient practices of our Rastafari elders has been geared towards the utilization of a chalice or a steam pipe. And what that does, it actually replicates the anatomical composition of the man, whereby your nasal passage has natural filtration methods. And it is so rich with blood vessels that it allows the smoke to actually cool down before it's absorbed into your olfactory bulb and right into your hypothalamus or any other place where the cannabinoids actually interact with your physical structure. So it is with that knowledge of understanding, well, look, if anything you burn and you think and you put on a spliff and them things, inadvertently, that's going to damage you. So then we go back to the knowledge of the elders. Let's steam it. So you heat it to a particular temperature and you don't burn it down, and the steam that comes out of it it is what that is utilized. So when it comes to the whole aspect, as we know that cannabis is going to be decriminalized in Ghana, I mean, there's supposed to be fundamental education, just same way that the shamans do it in South America, whereby the youth are actually guided through the meditation process, because cannabis is not just medical cannabis. You know, it is also a spiritual herb that takes us through that gateway and gives us access to the other realms, the unseen realms, the intangible realms, that we could actually tap into it and that we could bring things right forward into the tangible realms. So having that knowledge, then we begin to see that ganja is not just a physical commodity, right? It is also a spiritual commodity. Yes, you could say, well, it is medical marijuana, you know, you could do the oil, you could do the. But at the end of the day, we as Rastafari see the herb as an alive entity and understand that, and how we deal with it is in that level of respect, knowing that when you use that herb, the herb is going to be given of itself, because the herb will be no more. So you are approaching this herb in that levels of reverence and understanding that, oh, I'm gonna steam this herb, and after I steam it, the life force it has is going to be no more. But I'm gonna take in the life force of that herb and help me to elevate myself into a meditation, a heights that I could actually uplift man, and I could uplift herbs, I could help to save animals, I could help to save trees, I could help to actually contribute to the upliftment of nature. Because most times you see man separate themselves from nature and say,
right,
oh, you know, but we are a part of nature.
A part of nature. Now, two questions in one, and that will be the final one before I move on to Dr. Wayne Rose. Now, what do you use for your teeth? Is it toothpaste?
Well, I use a variety of things. You know, I use neem. You have neem growing all the way around here. So I'm even traveling from St. Lucia, and I had to stop into London. I had my neem stick chewing. So neem is critical. I also use charcoal. Charcoal, meaning you activated charcoal is just charcoal. You could take your mortar and pestle, and let's say you have coconut shells, you burn them until it forms coals, and you pong it and you sieve it through a cheesecloth or a cloth or a microme sheet at probably about 80 nanometers or 80 microns, so you could get the fine particles, and you use that. You probably mixed with a little bit of clove oil, extra virgin coconut oil, and use that to brush your teeth or to gargle. It helps with dental health.
You don't use toothpaste?
I use toothpaste made by people I trust.
Which one is that?
The one made by Blakk Rasta. When Blakk Rasta make it,
all right,
I will say it.
For real. So the last one I was going to ask you, do you speak against smoking amongst Rastas?
Well, I speak about what you call COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, which is one of the diseases that's actually plaguing our people that are elder Rastafari, because of the blending of cannabis with tobacco, you know, and smoking using Rizlas and all these papers. So you see what has happened is that within Jamaica and within North America and even in St. Lucia, the incidence of that kind of pulmonary disorder, where when people take 2 steps, they, you know, these things there we speak against. It's not like we tell a man, don't smoke. We tell a man, well, brethren, you know, if you smoke tobacco, you're going to go back. You know, if you're going to blend the herb with black tobacco, you know, what you are doing is that you are putting yourself at an 80% higher risk, you know, of dying, you know, probably 30, 40 years before your time, and a horrible death. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is a condition whereby the whole matrix of the lungs become like concrete, and you cannot even absorb oxygen effectively. So it's like a little piece of your lung is working because you have actually fibrosed your lung because of the high level of tobacco. So I would tell them, okay, well, if you using cannabis or ganja, you understand, well, use it in a steam pipe. Or if you want to burn it, use it in a chalice, in an apparatus that could filter it, cool it down. I would say, well, don't smoke paper. I'm a Rastafari. If I run a country, it's going to be illegal to smoke spliffs, because I understand how detrimental it could be to our people. I would more tell them, well, use a chalice. You know, as the hippies have a bong, you know, as the new age people have what you call vapes, you know, but then just take the vape and put it over a water vessel to help the steam to pass through the water, you know, because you know that the ancient principle of burning chalice is our ancient creational principle of the spirit of noon, of Ptah going over the primordial waters, the same smoke, because when you burn a chalice, it's creation, right? So our ancestors and the Dogons, they use the steam pipe to map the heavens. So he said that the spirit of Ptah went over the primordial waters, the noon, the now net, and entered into the noon, into the human, or what the Catholics call the nun, the virgin, and came out as Ra, the first created being. So every time you utilize that steam pipe and you pull, the steam of the ganja goes into the water and come back out. Then the water represents the feminine entity, which is the human, and comes back out as the first created being that comes into you, goes through what you call your cribriform plate into your brain, and comes out through your nostrils and
This
go back
is 3
and
FM.
forms clouds that fall down and come down as blessings, as rain.
Interesting. In Ghana, about 1 million people who smoke marijuana do not pass it through no water. They either smoke spliffs or they smoke directly from the chalice. The chalice is burning and it doesn't pass through any water. Are you advising them against this?
Well, I'm not adding any vice. You know, I'm just teaching them that this is the wrong way to do it.
Right.
Uplift yourself. It is not that there is anything wrong in utilizing cannabis. And also in a high level of discipline. It's not because you are someone who use cannabis or ganja that means that your neighbor use it also. My mother never saw me smoke herb. My father never saw me smoke herb. It's not something I do on the roadside. You know, so the same way that you don't want a man who is smoking cigarette to smoke cigarette by you, you're supposed to at least have that level of consciousness where you respect the integrity of other people. And then you know, well, it's not something you could smoke, and you're smoking and you blow smoke in people's face. Right? So it has the high level of discipline that has been exercised by His Imperial Majesty. And we work to emulate to actually rise up our people.
When we return, we'll talk some history. Yes, for real.
High grade, strictly high grade. Don't be afraid.
This is 3 FM.
We lick the chalice, make the water go.
This is 3 FM.
Fire, fire, fire. Smoke the herbs, the herbs, the herbs, the herbs, the herbs. Oh, don't make the chalice go. Give me the weedy, weedy, weed, weedy. Cut off the cigarette like half of the beady. Smoke the weed till we eyes them bleedy. Pass another couple load and give me fire, fire, fire.
Oh God, Blakk Rasta, oh God.
Ganja farmer, deep down in the earth, me put the ganja. Babylon come and light it at a fire, me a can. Yes, I'm a ganja planter. Call me the ganja farmer. Deep down in the earth, me put the ganja. Babylon come.
Blakk Rasta, and this is 92.7 in Living Stereo. Dr. Wayne Rose is a very powerful historian. And we're going to have a little conversation about our history. Who are we as a people? And we means black people.
We're first. We're
First?
first in creation. We are people who have helped in the design of what we see across all nations, the development of nations. We are resourced. We're resources and we're resourced. So the question as to who we are is one for ourselves, really, because others have defined us. And what we have done, we have taken those definitions and applied them within a reality, a made reality for us. And then that becomes a new reality. So part of what we do, even in the context of my own teaching, is to look at our people as we moved across Africa, outside of Africa, embrace new spaces, create new experiences, to unpack the negative components of those experiences, to redefine for ourselves who we are in the 21st century. So we are and we are becoming.
Are all black people Africans, or there are some black people who are not Africans?
Well, there are two schools of thinking in this regard, because one could easily say all people comes from the mitochondrial DNA of Lucy, Idaltu, who was found in the Rift Valley of Ethiopia or East Africa. And therefore, from the context of that narrative, people migrated, both initially from the Rift Valley, then across populated the rest of Africa, and then the rest of the world. And, evolution, that's the only nature of African evolution that we would speak of, right? So as we look at colorism, that's another topic, and how people engage colorism. Who is black? What is black? Did we define ourselves as black? Those are questions that are being unpacked in our current narratives and our current educational processes. But what we do know is that Africa is real, and the people that we see across Africa, the majority of the people we see across Africa, are black, as is defined in today.
This is 3FM.
Oh.
Yes, I.
So, tell me, if the black man was the very first human, as you said, do you have an idea which the first language was?
Well, the first language, there are ongoing conversations about the
This
first
is
language.
3FM.
From the Ethiopic context, we would say Ge'ez. But then there are people in Ethiopia who speak no Ge'ez, and they are original people. They click. Yes, you have their language in of itself comes from sound. So once sound is developed, and you talk about phonetics because of the way things sound, and Rastafari today speak of words, sound, and power. Instead of seeking to give a clarified answer to you, I'd love to think of sound and its importance in terms of today. Because what we do today is that we have embraced sounds, languages which are now casting spells over our human experience, the black human experience, the African human experience. So in the sounds that have defined us, we find ourselves entrapped. We find ourselves living from the perspective of someone else, living a reality that has not been created by us, something imposed on us. So language and sound, in terms of what would be initial and African, would be goodness, and whatever format that took, it meant that we were balanced in our own creation. What we have done is to deviate from our own creation by a variety of instruments, the enslavement process, migration, socializations. And what we've now created are the things, or we've perpetuated the things that were imposed on us, and it becomes new creations. So we seek now today to reconnect to our base, to Africa, and to the originality of our thinking. And it starts with our own utterances of goodness. It starts with what the Honorable Priest Kailash had spoke about, where you care sufficiently about your current reality and your future, and you make the adjustments mentally. You think about what it is that you want to do, and then manifest it, because we can. That's what we did even in the processes of being taken out of Africa by force. What we did when we came into these new spaces is to create new methods of coping that becomes now reality. Reggae music, for instance, becomes a reality.
Right.
The Nyabingi order, which is African, becomes a new reality that we embrace and use in terms of the cessation of violence and the cessation of oppression on all people,
This
especially
is
African
3FM.
people. So our language then becomes the sound of goodness, the thought of goodness.
Sound of goodness.
Yes, and the
Thought of
manifestation. The manifestation through thought to new sounds, new paradigms, new frameworks of being and becoming. Because our humanity is on a trajectory that's unstoppable. So we'll never stop. We are not final. We're always aspiring for the next and the new at the highest level.
Powerful. If black people were supposed to be this powerful, you know, first to be created, black people did this, black people did that, they invented this, they did that, they were great scientists. Before I drop the question, tell me, how did white people come into being at all if we were all black at the beginning?
Again, there are scientific analysis on some of this. Some people say they came through Neanderthals and were not part of the original creation. Some people believe that and articulate that. Some people believe that the current white man you see is a merging of the original humanoid and Neanderthals. Others, like John Henry Clark, speaks of the evolutionary process, that some people lived for thousands of years in caves and had to make the adjustments. As Darwin, whether you like him or not, he demonstrated how birds and other species evolve for survival. And in the evolutionary processes, they drop or take on features that allows for their survival. So that's the best answer I'll give you in terms of the evolution and coming into being of people who are white. They either come through the bowels of Lucy, and by the way, what today's science says is that Lucy, Idaltu, the Ethiopian human that was found over 200,000 years ago, her DNA connects every humanity, which gives credibility to the first origin of Africa spreading itself towards all other human beings. But science, again, is as best or as good as its era. So tomorrow the science may change based on whatever formulas are being used.
Oh, okay. So the science can actually change. The science can actually change. So white people are actually from Neanderthals.
Again, it's part of a narrative that is shared even by themselves.
Who are Neanderthals?
So Neanderthals are creatures. Are creatures. No, so you see, without
This is 3FM.
without seeking to define things that our research have not taken us in, we're giving the opinions, the written opinions of other people in other sciences that speaks to the potential origins of people and various people, right? So if you would ask me on an issue, and this is, by the way, everything has history, but history itself this is narrative. These are narratives from people who have done some search, and they say perhaps and maybe and it's likely. And when you read through the historical text, you see a lot of these things because the hard conclusions cannot be met because most people have not been there. So you carbon date certain things in order to prove it. But even that as a science, carbon dating perhaps will be improved in the next 5-10 years. So what we do know today is where we can start and continue from is that we have a variety of species of humanity. And what we've seen in the variations of our humanity are multiple activities that speaks to perhaps origin or socialization. And in the context of Europeans, we've seen some significant atrocities against indigenous peoples and groups across the world that perhaps says they are very different from the rest of us.
This is 3FM.
From what you said, it means white people are not the human.
No, from what you have concluded of what I said. Humanity, and this is an excellent debate, by the way, Blakk Rasta, because the definition of humanity is morphing even in the moment you speak. We're artificial intelligence. So intelligence is human, right? And artificial intelligence, now there are debates in that space where people are saying the very AI will advocate for their rights within the construct of humanity. If you speak of flesh and blood, white people are flesh and blood. If you speak of consciousness, they too have consciousness. If you speak of goodness, they too have represented goodness across the experiences that we've had. But to get into further the narrative of deeds done, past, present, we've seen what the past have looked like. We've seen the atrocities of the past. We know that empires and people within leadership within empires have done significant good and significant evil. In fact, that's the polarity of our human experiences. In the African context, though, there's been a consistency in terms of our gift to the broad humanity. And part of that gift has been forgiveness. Part of that gift has been spirituality and healing. Part of that gift has been music and art, right? So there are different dimensions. What we seek before any narrative that divides us are ways to reconcile the broad humanity within the context of goodness.
This is 3FM.
I'm going to drop a final one and I'll move to Priest Kailash. Oh my God. Now, I've spoken to a number of people on this show, and some of them believe that white people are actually albino mutants. There was another school of thought that said that there was one Dr. Leakey who was a mad scientist. Whatever he was, he created white people in his laboratory. Have you come across some of these schools of thought?
Give thanks, Blakk Rasta. I've read those
Wow.
narratives. I've come across them. But what they do in reality is only seek to divide our humanity.
This is 3FM.
The first question when you speak of, I speak of it in terms of a historical context. But what we do know today is that the polarity of our human experiences are experienced and conducted by people. Today, African people who are called black, are on the extremes, the polar extremes of our human existence. They do good and they do evil. We see this within the white experience also. So instead of looking at white people, we look at the systems that are embraced by both black and white and which dominate our human consciousness and our human activities today. And in those systems, what we see is a lust for more, a gluttony for oppression, a gluttony for the experimentation and what the most devastating conduct that can be unleashed on the rest of humanity. And it comes within a European construction. But the people, when you sit and you speak and act and interact with people, you see real humanity. You see real people with empathy, with love. And so on a people-to-people interaction, we'll always be able to have hope for a better future. But if we try just to put everyone in a box and say white people, then you recognize that we create divisions that will not serve the greater humanity and the prospect for what His Majesty told us to become, better than we have been, large in purpose, greater in outlook, owing our ultimate allegiance not to even the constructed systems, but to our fellow human beings.
This is 3FM.
Dr. Wayne Rose is the keynote speaker at the 9th Rastafari Conference, and we're going to be getting into it anytime soon. All right, so Priest Kailash is still right here. Now, Priest Kailash, tell me, herbal physician is who you are. Does spirituality play any role in that?
Yes, I give thanks again. I give thanks, Dr. Wayne Rose, for these words of love. Because even as a man of the broad human family, just before I answer that, I just want to say that our diversities is basically what makes us brilliant and makes the world what it's supposed to be. And the fact that I could travel to South America and see an Indian, a Tahino Indian, or a Caribou, an Ararak, with very peculiar features as a human being, I could admire that and say, wow, give thanks for, that the Creator has took the time to fashion a man that looks like that. Or like a Chinese, or a Mongol, or an Indian, or Caucasian, or, a man, an African man. So when we look at through the realms of humanity, you have all different varieties of beautifully created human beings. And it is critical that we see that, as we say, we don't fight against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high and low places, and principalities, so it is more against the system of white supremacy than just you saying that you are fighting in quotation mark a race of people, so it is critical that there is that embracing of humanity, because my journey is not limited for the upliftment of only people that look like me. What I do, it is comprehensively for not just for the human being, but for the animals and the plants.
I see.
And for anything that is actually living, that is critical, right? So when you say about a herbal physician and spirituality, we don't only look at disease as just a physical thing. In truth and in fact, the man, so when I look at Blakk Rasta, I don't just look at the physical Blakk Rasta. The physical Blakk Rasta is just one component of Blakk Rasta. Then you go to the emotional Blakk Rasta, which is basically the happy, the sad, the vengeful, or the angry, or that emotional state of happiness and all these different emotions that you cannot weigh. You cannot feel happiness, you cannot touch it, you cannot weigh, you cannot cut anger, but it's a sensation that you could feel, that you could use your physical structure, tap in the emotional realms, see happiness, your brain transduce it, transform it into serotonin, and you feel happy and you smile. Then they could give you Prozac and make you smile the same way. Then you have your effort, which is your vibration, your energy. So if you come out of that seat and I could take up an instrument, I could still see your hit signature with your same shape in that same place here. And science go even further and call it the phantom theory, whereby if you amputate someone's toes, that's diabetic, they could feel that itching of that toe even months after that toe is actually gone, because the ethereal aspect of that man is still in existence.
Wow.
Then yet still you have the soul of that being, which is fundamentally your personal identity in this big consciousness. So you say, this man don't have a soul, or this man that's a good soul, so based upon your level of consciousness, then your soul self, which is over your effort, which is your energy. So your good soul can be felt, because but that man have a good energy, so you have a good soul. Now that man have bad energy there, that's a bad soul, right? Then from the soul self, you have the manifestation of the spirit self, which is basically your connection into the great I am, your breath, that infinite, undying aspect of you that cannot be destroyed, that's connected to the ultimate source, that's nourished by your soulful works of spirituality and religion, right? And your effort, your energy, what you surround yourself with, and then your emotional, being happy and glad and thankful and gracious, and then your physical, eating right and maintaining yourself. And you still have your astral self, which is as above, as below, because you are a star. You Rasta, Farai, you Blakk Rasta. You are light that illuminates other people on their path by the words you speak, the deeds you do, the way that you live. And then you have your God self, which is your creation self. Because as a man, Blakk Rasta, you could ejaculate into a woman 23 chromosomes, and she could take it and she can give birth to a new human being, because you have created that person. Or you could take an idea out of the unseen, the unfelt, the unweighed, that you can cut and bring it into this physical realm. So we look at man as a 7 levels of manifestation. So the same way as a herbal physician, we don't just treat your physical symptoms. We say, well, the spirit of interconnectedness from center to circumference, whereby when a man is sick, he is not just sick, his family is sick, his community is sick, his village is sick, his country is sick, his nation is sick. So then you begin to analyze that man and begin to deal with this diabetes or high blood pressure or prostate cancer. Did you know that a man who has been rejected can develop prostate cancer just because of rejection?
I didn't know that.
Of course. So if you're rejected, every time you think of your rejection, how do you feel? You feel good?
Yeah, you feel bad.
You feel bad. So what hormones represent bad? Cortisol. And every time you feel bad, cortisol rises up in your physical structure. Now, naturally, cortisol is what you call a steroidal hormone. That cortisol goes through that whole mechanism, that machinery that creates more estrogen.
Cortisol.
So you now, as a man, begins to produce more estrogen, the female hormone. It makes you grow breasts. It makes your prostate naturally enlarge. And eventually, you could develop prostate cancer just because you always feel bad about yourself, boy.
This is 3FM.
Now man just left me there and think. After so much for this man, you understand? So then that state of being, of rejection, could lead a man to develop prostate cancer. So the same way, trauma, rape, sexual abuse, 80% of our women are abused, are physically and emotionally violated. So if 10 women comes into my practice, in my craft, my clinic, 8 out of, I'm being conservative, 8 out of that 10 has been abused, have been traumatized.
Wow.
And that trauma is what gives them breast cancer, ovarian cancer, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids. So when you begin to attack these disease conditions,
this
you don't just look at
3FM.
the physical thing. So the woman comes and say, well, Pris, me and my partner have been trying to have children for so long, and the doctor say I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, but do you want to have a child? Do you really want to have a child? And this is a woman who comes and pays their $200 to come and sit down and speak with you, or their $300 to have an online, say that they want to have a baby, but then you find out that she doesn't subconsciously, buried in her subconsciousness, she doesn't want to have a baby because she was traumatized, and she doesn't want to bring back a child into that world of trauma that she has actually lived into. And then she'll start to cry after 10 or 15 minutes and say, well, then I would have to say then, but I mean, my sister, if it is that you went through trauma and abuse, right? Are you not in a better position to deal with someone who has been abused? You're in a better position. Or are you not then in the capacity to be a better mother than someone who's never been through abuse? Yes. So your experiences have been bad, but it is a life it's education. So it has equipped you now to be a better mother, to prevent your daughter or your son to go through the abuse that you actually went through. So you can emotionally, you can soully, you could spiritually, astrally, your goddess self, you could actually create and give birth to a child, and know that you have all what it takes to actually take care of that child. And before that woman drinks one of our medicines, she already can get pregnant, right? Just because the emotional wellness and the other 5 levels play a 70% role in the healing of our people.
Is there any disease or any sickness or any illness that somebody brought to you and you didn't have any knowledge of and you had to send them away, or probably ask them to just go whilst you were researching into that?
I would say ignorance and the sense of not being humble. You cannot heal that, so the first step towards healing is just accepting, look into the mirror and see what you have. That's what I do for myself, It's not like as a healer, you are perfect. I'm on this journey. So if I see, man, I'm 46, I'm on my 47th cycle around the sun.
Oh, wow.
If then I see, well, when I go and urinate, I used to urinate, I start 2 times a day. I start to drink some stinging nettle or drink some anamu.
Okay.
Or check myself, start to exercise, say, well, boy, I'm under too much stress, I have to step aside from that and don't internalize these type of things. So it is that knowledge of self that allows you. So anyone who comes to you, right, as long as they are willing to learn, as long as they are willing to listen, right, they are able to heal themselves.
Right. It looks like we're running out of time. We have just about 3 more minutes or 4 more minutes to go. I wish we had another 10 hours to be able to deal with this, because it's more and more and more and more and more, getting more and more interesting by the second. Now, please, Kailash, I'm going to ask you one of the last questions before we leave. Some people treat diseases with animal parts, and so on and so forth. I know you are vegan.
I'm not vegan. I'm Rastafari.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I'm ITAL, plant-based.
all right.
Yeah.
All right. What's the difference between?
But vegan is a religion, you know, because they'll still drink a Coke and a Sprite, and you know, Coke is not it and Sprite is not right.
Right.
You know, so they'll still drink these things and they'll still, but as Italists or Rastafari,
See.
you know, our consciousness is not just about saving the animals, it's about saving human beings also.
Right. So, would you use animal parts to treat anybody?
Well, in ancient medicine, you know, I grew up in a culture where my grandmother was the village healer, and there was a very particular tincture that she utilized, a caterpillar called the shini twef, which was a big, colorful caterpillar, and they would take the plant, parts of the plant that the caterpillar feeds upon, and use the caterpillar itself and soak it in alcohol for about 21 days, you know, in the dark moon. You know, when the other dark moon cycle actually come the day before the new moon, that they begin to utilize it as a tincture that people utilize for stomach aches and parasitic infections. So I fully understand that level of a principle, you know, and I do utilize that level of healing. But to tell a man that I will use animal poop or cow dung on the island and things, or I'll tell you, you have to go eat some liver or them type of things. No, I would really tap into the esoteric levels of the knowledge of our ancestors, because our healing is not just as simple as you see it, you know, because we could stay right here. I was on a program in London at a time, and a woman called and say, well, priest, you know, I've not seen my cycle for 13 years. And just because I listened to your interview, my cycle began just after I started to listen to the interview. So our powers are not limited to the scene. We don't come and condemn what people do. So I won't condemn a man for using animal parts or eating animals, because a man's relationship with his food is different. The man that sees the chicken and raise the chicken and then says to the fowl, oh, my beloved fowl, I give thanks for our journey together. Now I'm about to kill you, to incorporate. Now I'm very serious. That man has a different relationship with his food than even the man that claims that he is vegetarian or vegan and eats vegan, and yet still his mind is filthy and dirty with thoughts. You know, so we have to learn to understand people's culture, understand where people's coming from, and embrace them as part of our human family and love them, you know. So I have some medicines, you know, we came from an event, so, but I did carry some of my medicines for you.
Oh, wow. I remember the one that I had from you. I remember it every time.
Free up laxative.
Yes, this was nice, and when I drank it, it started purging me and all that. Yeah. At a point, I got frightened and I had to call you and say, Priest Kailash. It says, yeah, it's cleaning you up, man. Just take it up. And just by hearing that, I felt light and very good. I would love to have those medicines again. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That's about 20 years ago, man.
Now, 14 years.
14. Wow.
This is 3FM.
Priest Kailash is also an author. He writes books. How you mean? All right, so we're ending it up. Now there is the 9th Rastafari Conference, and you are the keynote speaker. What key are you going to be using, and what notes are you going to be giving to the people in terms of notice?
Give thanks, Blakk Rasta. So, you know, the topic is political consciousness, a key component for national development. And so as I have the privilege of speaking with the family and having thought about this, we're bringing our own perspective, we're bringing our own learning, and we're bringing life experiences to converse, even though it's a key and note. It's a conversation to have with mature adults, mature man, Rasta man and woman, and the people, especially our people who Rastafari ought to be serving, to invite them to come and critically examine what it means to be politically conscious. And then where and when are we making this move toward development? What kind of development? And what nation are we developing? Nation in terms of a physical space or a philosophical nature of man in space. So we'll have that conversation, and as you asked for the key really is our people who are open to dialogue, questions, critical thinking, and those who are prepared for the next and the new, so that the paradigm can be shifted toward a new African reality, designed by Africans, thought through critically by Africans, and established for the future of a better world. Because as Africa was in the beginning, so Africa is in the continuum of our human experience.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
This is 3FM.
Priest Kailash is also going to be speaking. Oh my God, and it is happening tomorrow. Where is it happening?
At the Art Center. Yeah, at the Art Center.
It's going to be happening at the Art Center. What time to what time?
From 10 a.m. until, I think, there's an event in the afternoon, but we'll be speaking probably from about 10, from 12. You speaking at 12? Yeah, so I'll be speaking before that. Also, I'll just be there in the space. So for the people who know about us, who might want to have a little conversation, that's your opportunity, because we do have other engagements afterwards that we have to attend to. So I give thanks again. The Blakk Rasta.
Kailash,
in the eyes of all Ghana, you treated me with utmost love and you embraced me. So when my empress said, Priest, you going Ghana, remember Blakk Rasta?
Whoa.
So give thanks for your love from 2008, my brother.
See.
And I did feel very welcome, and you allowed me to come into your midst.
This is 3FM.
Give thanks for the eye.
Blessed love. And I'm sure we're going to have some conversations before you leave. We're going to be finding out when you're going to be leaving and when we can have a repeat of this mind-blowing, wisdom-filled conversation again. I want to thank you both, Dr. Wayne Rose and Priest Kailash Loins, for talking to my listeners. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
We appreciate you.
Right.
Love. Joe!